Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
7:07 on this Friday in your nation's capital, 2 weeks before Christmas, second to last Friday before Christmas. Patrice, are you ready?
Yes.
Are you set? Is it going to happen?
No, I'm not. I've got a ton of things to do, including hang our outdoor light display, which we have not done because it's been so cold.
You still haven't done your outdoor
lights?
Oh, my
gosh, Larry.
Goodness. All right. No, it's all right. Coming up at 8:05, Andrew Kerr, Washington Free Beacon. We'll get into that Wes Moore story. And then at 8:35, Brian Darling will be joining us, talk about the upcoming battle over Obamacare. That's Patrice Onwuka.
Happy Friday. Happy Friday,
Thank you.
Larry.
Don't make us wait for it. You gotta hit the mark.
Okay.
Joining us right now, Alex Swoyer. She's an attorney. She's editor-at-large of the Washington Times. She's got a great book called Lawless Lawfare, which tells exactly what you think it tells about the Biden administration, the attacks on Donald Trump and conservatives. And she also hosts the Court Watch podcast. And in that capacity, Alex, we welcome you because what did you watch in the court this last week?
Oh, it was a busy week at the Supreme Court. That is right. So Monday was one of the bigger, I guess you could refer it to one of the firing cases. So it has to do with President Trump's ability to fire one of the FTC commissioners, Rebecca Slaughter. Mm-hmm. If you remember, there was a few different, I think it was, the National Labor Relations Board. There's just been all the different agencies that he's tried to remove people that have been
Slaughter was
him.
Trade Commission, right?
Exactly, Federal Trade Commission. And so the interesting thing about her case is that there's like 90-year-old precedent, a case from 1935. It's called Humphrey's Executor, and it basically limited the president's ability to, and it dealt explicitly with the FTC. And it was basically a holding that limited the president's ability to fire or remove people from these independent agencies, okay? So based on that precedent, lower courts had sided with Rebecca Slaughter. The president's administration had brought this to the Supreme Court. During oral arguments, I would say it sounded like they were recognizing that, this 90-year-old precedent, it's been chipped away at over the years, I think they're inclined, if I'm going to guess one way or the other, to give President Trump a win on this. Mm-hmm. I don't know how far they go, whether they completely overrule this, 1935 case or not. But I do think he'll come out on top on that one. And it's just interesting because next month there's a couple of big cases we could also talk about that are pretty huge. But one of them is the Lisa Cook, and she was the one who tried to remove at the Federal Reserve. So that one will be in January. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how that plays up against the oral arguments we just heard.
Yeah. So, Alex, one of the other cases that I think is really important to our listeners, really, I guess it was maybe a last week, but what's happening with New Jersey trying to subpoena pro-life pregnancy center donor information. The names and contact information of donors to their groups. I mean, this has massive sweeping implication for lots of nonprofits, particularly those who, take positions that people might not like. Talk to us about what you saw coming out of the oral arguments in that case and the Supreme Court's questions.
Yes, so that one was last week, you're right. The issue in that case is a little wonky. So what they're actually deciding is whether or not this should be fought in state or federal court. So not as sexy as the facts that you laid out, but very big, important case going forward.
We find standing incredibly sexy, all right? We're weird that way, Alex.
Well, but, it is true. What you were just talking about, Patrice, is important because really what's at the heart of it is like a First Amendment right of association issue, and being able to do so without fear of retribution or censorship, what have you. And it did seem like the justices, Justice Clarence Thomas really pointedly said to the lawyer arguing for New Jersey, basically, you had no complaints against this pregnancy center. I think it's like a network of pregnancy centers. And, if you had no complaints, why are you looking for this type of information? It seems like, they're just pointing out it's a fishing expedition.
Right,
and so,
a bullying campaign, yeah.
Right. And in the past, I've covered the court since 2017, so sometimes I have to jog my memory, but I know there's been cases similar. Like, I believe it was California may have had a law that they were trying to pass about donor disclosures for certain nonprofits. And that, if I remember right, was shut down. I think that there's, a recognition about how dangerous that could be, especially, given the state of our country and the political divide, and even more so when we're seeing increased political violence. So, that was one that they dove into. And it'll be interesting. I think, obviously for the pregnancy centers, they would like to see this in a federal court. I think that they would have, a stronger First Amendment defense, and I think that would
it'll be a better platform for First Amendment.
Exactly, a better forum.
Alex Swoyer is our guest. She's with Washington Times. Your Lawless Lawfare book, I think, plays into the next two stories I want to ask you about. One is about a Supreme Court argument, real quickly, NRSC versus FEC. This has to do with the Republican senatorial campaign and a campaign finance dispute involving how money can be spent on certain advertising. What's interesting, though, is, you talk about the poster child for lawfare. Mark Elias, of all people, made the argument on this case, and it didn't sound like he did very well.
I don't think they're going to win. But we'll see. I mean, who knows? It was one of those cases where I will say, I thought when the liberals are kind of asking you questions that see clarity, it's a problem when you're on that side of the podium. But I will say, the way that they were asking questions across the board, I didn't leave feeling one way or super strong one way or the other.
Okay.
But I do, it's one of those campaign finance cases. You did have some of the justices, of course, saying, how could this not be speech? Being able to donate or have your, basically, the party help when the federal, coordinate, basically, with their federal candidates. Yeah. It seems like a First Amendment free speech or freedom to associate issue again. Gotcha. So we'll see what they do. It was one that was a little hard to read.
And then finally, you had the story about Jack Smith. Of course, Jack Smith, the special prosecutor appointed to look into Donald Trump, Mar-a-Lago, January 6th. And, of course, Supreme Court sort of stepped in, and he's now been dismissed.
When you brought up Mark Elias, that's why I kind of laughed, because he's always been known as the, Democrat lawyer, right, for these advocacy groups.
Well, there's a new sheriff in town.
That's exactly what you took the words out of my mouth, Larry. Yes, when I saw that Jack Smith was launching his new firm next month, I thought, is he going to put Elias out of business? Is that going to be now the new go-to Democratic, place for lawfare? So we'll see. Yes, he's joined by a few other prosecutors who had worked basically to investigate President Trump in some capacity. I think one had worked on the House Select Committee looking into the president in January 6th. The other one had worked with Jack Smith on the Mar-a-Lago classified documents case. Mm-hmm. And, there's already been, I'm sure you've covered it extensively for your listeners, but issues that House Judiciary Committee Jim Jordan has found, Senator Chuck Grassley over in the Senate Judiciary.
Yeah, there are issues. Yeah.
Yeah, so some of those are, the idea of a lack of candor in some of the ways that Jack Smith practices law. For example, your rules of professional conduct make it so you are required as a lawyer, if you present anything to a court, to a judge, that it's honest, right? You have all of your material facts there. You can't purposely omit, right?
Alex, those are merely guidelines and suggestions, aren't they? Come on.
You would think, right?
Next, you're going to tell me the Constitution actually overrides some of these things. Alex, we got to leave it there. We appreciate you joining us.
Thank you, Alex.
Appreciate you.
Check out the podcast. It's Court Watch. It's the podcast brought to you by the Washington Times. It's 7:15.
WMAL, making sense of the news. Live from the Home Paramount Pest Control Studios. Home Paramount, the leader in pest control since 1939.
Brought to you by the National Air Traffic Controllers Association. We guide you home. NATCA.org.
Secretary Duffy of Transportation, as you know, earlier this week made a big announcement at Reagan trying to implore airports and airlines to add some, sort of gym-type equipment so that as passengers are, travelers are laid over, flights delayed, instead of just sitting there and eating Sbarro or drinking Starbucks and such, they can go and do some chin-ups or some sit-ups or some pull-ups. Now, our friend Julie Gunlock suggested that she's a little concerned that she's going to be sitting next to some sweaty dude who's just been doing some kind of
Julie's also concerned about we people who bring food on the plane and eat it. Yeah, I heard you guys talking about that.
That is an issue as well. That said, in addition to the gyms, Secretary Duffy is also imploring airports to increase the little playgrounds that have been set up. And I've seen some of these at airports because if you're traveling with kids, they get pretty antsy. And the choices have them sit there and watch, some screen that you've brought for them until it drains battery, so you've run out of any of it for the flight. Or you can have them go through one of those little Chuck E. Cheese plastic tunnels and climb and get their energy out at the airport so that they're exhausted and they fall asleep on the plane.
It's a great strategy.
Right.
I love it because airports are really made for adults. They are made for people who are either have a place to go or are comfortable, squinching themselves up and taking up as little space and air and, noise and making as little noise as possible. And little people just are not built that way. So I love the idea of a play space where maybe there's some tables that you could sit and draw in color. You can climb all over the place. It should be designated, but it's great when you get a layover 4 hours or, your plane is delayed. I think that's fantastic.
Have your kids jump around, play around, bounce around, scream, and run around in the airport, not down the aisle of the 737.
Thank you.
Not in the seat right behind me. I want your kids sitting behind me to be out of energy so they don't kick my seat every 30 seconds.
Thank you.
This is
and
what we all want.
That goes for that crunchy liberal that was behind me coming back from Santa Barbara who kept pounding the back of my chair. And I kept turning around saying, you need to stop, otherwise I'm going to deal with you. And then I think he was a liberal because of how he was dressed and some politics he and his lady friend were talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know if he knew I was a conservative, but I'm just blowing off a little steam here. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
Make the playground for the liberals too.
So did he call you a fascist racist when you did that, by the way, or did you stifle him?
I would have liked for him to try. You would have seen it on social media go viral if he did that.
Here's the other reason why we want the playgrounds in the airports, because if you don't give people something to sort of blow off steam and climb around and jump around, then they'll do it at the baggage claim carousel. And those things are not to be jumped on and played on. And a passenger learned that over at Dulles Airport yesterday. A passenger got stuck in the baggage claim equipment and needed to be freed by a rescue crew.
Oh, no. I'm sorry to laugh.
It's an adult, and they suffered an injury, actually, but I'm not sure. What were they doing?
Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out here. It said the adult male made an, quote, unauthorized entry into baggage delivery system and got trapped. So, I mean, did he go through where, the conveyor belt and he went inside to see behind the scenes? Maybe he was looking for he didn't want to wait for it to come around, his bag, and he went in there, crawled in there, and didn't realize that it's not a big, giant warehouse behind there or something.
Haven't we all wanted to ride on that damn thing and just go do one lap on the carousel and just sort of.
But you don't know what happens behind when it goes through the flaps. You don't know what it looks like back there.
We were in Italy when we flew to Italy for our vacation a couple of weeks ago. We're in the Rome airport. We go down to get our bags, and the bags for our flight, half of them are on the carousel, but it's locked. It's just stopped. And I could see one of my bags that was like halfway in and out of the little thing, the thing was stopped. So I went over and I got my bag, and then while I got my bag, I sort of pulled the little, the black little rubber things that hang down there.
Yeah.
I pulled them aside to see what the hell was going on back there, and all the bags were sitting there on the other side as well, but everything had stopped. And I mean, every carousel had stopped. And I went to one of the employees, and I who spoke English, and I said, "What's going on here?" And he said in his Italian accent, "We're on the break." And I'm like, what do you mean you're on a break? It's break time. So at the airport, it doesn't matter. They're in the middle of having the suitcase. And I said, well, I don't care if you're on a break. You can at least turn the carousel on so everyone can get their bags. No. Hey, we can't do that. We're on a break, man. We got to do that. So freaking Europeans, this is the problem with Europe. This is why they'll never compete with us.
Exactly.
That everyone's
They
sitting
don't
there waiting
work.
for break time is break time, man. So we had to wait half an hour for them to turn the carousel back on so we can get the rest of our bags. That doesn't surprise me.
That's
go.
Europe and a lot of countries, actually. A lot of countries are like that.
That's why people climb on these things. They get desperate, man.
And then they get stuck.
This guy got stuck and hurt himself. So we feel your pain, my friend. It's 7:23.
Okay, coming up, we've got Minock from WJLA to talk about an illegal alien who killed a woman in Loudoun County. Stay with us. It's O'Connor and Company at 7:30.
WMAL-FM, Woodbridge, Washington. A Cumulus media station. Making sense of the news. News Talk 105.9. News now. Now on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app. O'Connor and Company.
Morning. Thanks for tuning in here as we get you rolling this morning and off where you need to go for work, for school, for last-minute holiday shopping. Coming up at 8:05, Andrew Kerr, investigative reporter of Washington Free Beacon, who has an expose on Wes Moore's resume. More holes than Swiss cheese, they say. Then at 8:35, Brian Darling, formerly of Senator Rand Paul's staff, will get his perspective from the Liberty Government Affairs, founder of Liberty Government Affairs, find out where we're going with health care in this debate we're about to engage in. I'm Larry O'Connor, and that is Patrice Onwuka. Good morning, Patrice.
Good morning and happy Friday.
To you as well. I welcome now, friend of the program, Nick Minock. He, of course, a reporter at WJLA, ABC 7. With an update on a story that he followed, and we followed you following it, Nick, as is often the case, out of Sterling. This is the story of Jose Aguilar Martinez, who stole a car and then tragically killed the woman in the parking lot there in Sterling at the shopping center. Was the woman the owner of the car that he stole?
That's right. And this is a sad story, and if you ask the sheriff in Loudoun County about this could have been totally prevented. We'll get to that in a second. But again, his name is Jose Aguilar Martinez. Yesterday, he pleaded guilty to several felonies in Loudoun County Circuit Court. So we'll back up. Melody Waldecker is the victim's name. She's from Silver Spring, Maryland, and in July of 2024, she traveled to Loudoun County over the weekend because her mother was in a nursing rehab facility. Her mother was aging, so Melody was doing what you do when your parents are aging. She was going to take care of her mother, who was in this rehab facility in Loudoun County. She goes to a shopping center in Loudoun County. She walks out. It's the end of her life. This man decides to steal her car, run her over with her car.
Oh, my goodness.
With total disregard to her life. He flees the scene and gets in 2 other accidents. She dies. And so he has pleaded guilty to at least 6 charges. And his sentencing is going to be in March. And we learned as we covered this story that this individual who ran Melody over is in the country illegally. We also had learned at the time when we first reported it that a month prior to that, he faced a charge. It was drunkenness in public, and the sheriff's office notified the Biden administration at the time that he was in the country illegally. ICE did not, however, lodge a detainer and allowed him to stay in the community. And so Sheriff Chapman said this could have been totally prevented had ICE at the time picked him up and deported him.
This is it's ridiculous, Nick. It's unbelievable that both that this happened, that he was here illegally, and that the Biden administration refused to do their job here. What is the family saying? I know we understand that he's pled guilty. The assailant here pled guilty and is going to be sentenced. But what is the family of the victim saying to all of this, including the previous administration's dereliction of duty?
Yeah. The family's been very quiet when speaking to the press. This happens a lot when there's such a tragedy like this, But they were in court yesterday, shaken up, in tears, as you can imagine. I mean, Melody lived in Maryland. She was a local in our community, right? Who would have thought, driving to Loudoun County, one of our safest jurisdictions in our area, she wouldn't be coming back to Maryland?
Yeah.
I mean, you don't hear about this type of thing often in Loudoun County. But from what I can tell, the Commonwealth's attorney, the relatively new one, Bob Anderson, and Sheriff Mike Chapman have been pretty tough on this guy. So we might see in March him potentially serving a life sentence or greater. This man's also from El Salvador. So we'll see what happens with this, right? Because we have the new administration right now. Is the White House, for instance, going to call their friends in El Salvador and talk about having this individual serve time in, I don't know, CCOT or something like that. Yeah. But we'll keep track of it.
Well, and you're right, Nick, to point out that this is preventable on so many levels, not least of which the fact that he was in the country illegally. And when this incident happened, it was during the Biden administration. It was July of 2024. And shockingly, the Biden administration, even in light of this crime, did not issue a detainer or a order for deportation at the time, right? Which is, again, remarkable considering the crime at play here. Also, what have we learned about the California driver's license that this person obtained? Was that legally obtained? Is that the law in California?
Yep. Yeah, and Sheriff Mike Chapman was perplexed by this. I saw a copy of the California driver's license. He is in the country illegally. In court yesterday, this individual even admitted to the judge that he was in the country illegally, that he has like a GED, high school education from El Salvador, tried to complete that when he moved to the U.S. And, so he was driving with a driver's license, living in this area. And so that's what we know about the individual right now.
Yeah, and he just want to be pointed out, during the Biden administration, he had been arrested for public intoxication, so he was in police custody, but no detainer, no deportation. I think we should be grateful that this happened in Loudoun. One wonders, considering much of the reporting that you've done and many of the observations we've made about the Commonwealth's attorney in Fairfax County, if this would have the same outcome had it happened in Fairfax County versus Loudoun County.
Right. And Sterling is just right over the border.
On the border.
It's not even 5 minutes away from Fairfax County. Yeah. So had it happened in Herndon, had it happened in a community nearby, Chantilly, I mean, this could have been a totally different story because as we reported on 7 News, Fairfax County Commonwealth's Attorney Steve Descano has a policy that takes immigration consequences into consideration when they make things like plea deals. You might recall we did a story earlier this year about how a man, according to court records, brutally attacked his wife, who he has a child with. He's in the country illegally, according to ICE. And he didn't serve much time. I believe it was a month. Yeah. Yep. And Mr. Descano let him go. And when I called the victim to see if she was okay with that hey, he was back out on the streets, the victim told me no, that the prosecutor in Fairfax County told her he's going to serve a lot of time in prison. At least that's what they were aiming for. But then when I called Descano's office, they said, no, this is what the victim wanted, 30 days in jail. She didn't want, an immigration consequence for this individual. And the victim said that was a lie. You might recall that story we did earlier this year.
Yes.
So this could have had a totally different outcome had this been just across the border in Fairfax County.
We got to leave it there. Nick Minock, always appreciate you.
Thank you,
if we
Nick.
don't speak before the holidays, Merry Christmas. Do you go all out at your house? Are you that guy on the block? Have you gone insane with the lights?
I haven't, but we go insane inside. We got the Christmas tree and everything else. We enjoy it.
Excellent. Have a great one. Hope you have a nice, safe one, and we look forward to you getting back and rejuvenated and ready to cover Northern Virginia like no one else in 2026. It is 7:44. We have a amazing moment of cognitive dissonance from one Rachel Maddow. You really do have to sometimes either check your ethics, your intelligence, or your consistency, to say the least,
yes.
at the door when you become a member of the organized left in America, especially if you have a high profile like Rachel Maddow. Let's first remind you of Rachel Maddow's exclusive one-on-one interview with Kamala Harris the day that her book came out. This was the first interview that Maddow gave with Kamala Harris. And take a listen so you can remember what a grilling this was. Cut 11.
To be a black woman running for president of the United States and as a vice presidential running mate, a gay man, with the stakes being so high, it made me very sad, but I also realized it would be a real risk. No matter how, I've been an advocate and an ally of the LGBT community my entire life. So it wasn't about any prejudice on my part, but we had such a short period of time, and the stakes were so high.
So that's just a small indication of the kind of pablum that was produced by Kamala Harris and completely enabled and encouraged by Rachel Maddow. She gave all of her word salad, cautious sort of, please everybody kind of answers to these questions. And this is, Rachel Maddow, openly gay woman, highest profile liberal commentator in America, who's just sort of not even pushing back even to the slightest degree on Kamala Harris saying, I didn't pick Pete because he was gay and America's too bigoted. So I remind you of that because now Rachel Maddow is suddenly singing a different tune. And by the way, this was only 2 months ago, right?
It's not that long. The flashback is not that long ago.
Maddow just did the At Our Table podcast, which is hosted by the former DNC chair, Jaime Harrison. And she said, and I quote, we don't have the audio, do we? Let me just read the quote. In the interview with the camera rolling, she, Kamala Harris that is being careful. And I wish I would have just kind of pulled the plug and said, like, stop. I read the book. I've talked to you off camera. I know what you really think about these things. Stop being so safe. Just get real. You may be running for president again, in which case you can clean this up then. But let's just be messy. Let's just do it. Let's just put it all out there on the floor because I know what she's capable of in terms of just cutting right to it. And I wish I could have pushed her more to do that rather than receiving the way she conducted that interview. Well, what is this? I wish I could have. She was in charge of the interview. She had the big get.
She made the choice to edit herself and not push Kamala Harris.
That's right, because she toes the party line, because she wanted to make Kamala Harris look. Hey, here she is, cut 12. Listen to Rachel Maddow. We got that? Cut 12.
Right to it. I wish I would have pushed her more to do that rather than kind of receiving the way she conducted that interview. I think it was a fine interview, but it was safe. And I know that I think I could have tried to pressure her to pretend the camera was off.
Yeah.
So she's the foremost journalist of the left, by the way. They love her. She's she's the pro. And here she is just 2 months later regretting the most high-profile interview that she's had in the last
It's a cop-out. No, what happened is that she got a lot of pushback from people in her own camp, particularly those in the LGBTQ community who have a lot of money, power, and sway, who said, why didn't you call out Kamala Harris and do it in a sharper way? And so this is her responding to all of those critiques of her interview of Kamala Harris and saying, yeah, I wanted to. I really, really wanted to. And listen, guys, behind the cameras, she's totally different. She's sharper. She's edgier. She really lays it like it is. I mean, Rachel Maddow, though, come on. Either you are going to be a journalist or you're going to be a journalist. And if you're going to be a journalist and carry the water for a particular demographic, then be a journalist and carry the water for a particular demographic. But don't suddenly get all, well, I'm going to try to protect the party figure over the demographic. I mean, maybe just be a straight journalist and ask tough questions no matter no matter what the answer you're expecting to be.
That's not her job. And neither is it Stephen Colbert's job, by the way. Stephen Colbert's job is to conduct a nightly late-night group therapy for liberals, and that's what the show has become, and that's why it's losing so much money, and that's why his contract's not being renewed. I bring Stephen Colbert up because Rachel Maddow commented on him as well. He said they announced the cancellation of Colbert. Everybody knows what it's about. They're trying to live down their shame already. And I think in terms of the way they're capitulating, the CBS News takeover has been a huge embarrassment to everybody involved in it. And they should reverse their decision about Colbert. He's still on the air now. He's still got a few months on the horizon left, but they plan on taking him off the air. They should change that. It was absolutely transparent what CBS and Paramount were doing with getting rid of Stephen Colbert. I love that she wrapped the CBS News issues and Barry Weiss taking over CBS News into this conversation, because Stephen Colbert's not supposed to be a news show. It's supposed to be an entertaining talk show. So she sort of revealed her hand there. But Joe Concha, media critic at Fox, sort of really puts great perspective on this. Rachel Maddow currently finishes second in the ratings. She works 1 day a week. Okay, she only works 1 day a week, and she gets paid $25 million a year. Stephen Colbert loses $40 million a year for CBS. As Joe Concha put it, these people live in a fantasy world. They think these people should stay on the air just because they like their message and they like what they do, and it makes them feel good. But this is a business. But because Rachel Maddow makes $25 million a year for being, doing whatever she does for MS Now, I guess that's all that matters. That's enough to sustain what she believes the business should support. One other thing here, there's a picture. Variety has put together a picture here, a montage of Rachel Maddow and Stephen Colbert. To isolate this article, they're the same person.
They are, aren't they? It is uncanny, the resemblance between them.
Same haircut.
So the question is, who wears it better?
She comes across a little more manly. It's 7:54.
You're right.
Yeah,
you're right. Her features, it doesn't look like she does as much Botox as he does, and yeah, she has a stronger jawline than he does,
and a thicker beard. 7:54.